Here's a challenge that we're seeing from a lot of consumers today. It's consumer debt, especially with student loans. It is amazing the amount of money that I see people having to put out monthly to cover their student debt. The average that I'm seeing is anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. Well, here's the challenge. You spend the next 5 to 7 years paying off your student debt, and guess what you have? You have nothing. Well, you have your education, but you haven't created an asset. I want to spend a couple moments with you to help you think of it a different way. When we talk about reading books, Richest Man of Babylon and Cash Flow Quadrant, we want to focus on both of those. The Richest Man of Babylon was interesting because it talked about being in debt. How do you get out of debt? And they talked about making money, and as you make money, you take all of that money. So let's pretend you made $10, you put all $10 to debt, which is great. But if you owe 100, it's going to be a challenge by when you can start putting money in your pocket. So the example there is if you owe 10, give 9 back and keep the 1. That way, once you've gotten to 100, you have 10 in your pocket. Cash Flow Quadrant by Kiyosaki focuses on going from an employee to being self-employed to business to being an investor. Well, here's the fun thing. You can be an employee and investor at the same time. That's what I want to walk you through. So as we combine both principles, I want you right now to do this. Write down whatever you owe on student loans. $20,000, $30,000, $60,000, whatever it is. What is your monthly payment? On average, we see anywhere from $250 up to $400 a month that you're just paying out to 5 to 7 years from now have it paid off. We want to introduce a new concept, a concept of owning an asset that can actually pay for your student loans. If you owe, say, $60,000 on your student loans right now, and you're making, on average, we're going to use the board here, let's say you're making on average a payment of $300 that's going towards your student loan, okay, which is great. So you're paying in $3,600 a year. Do the math, 20 years, right, if you don't make extra payments. Well, here's the challenge. Once you've done it, whether you fast track it, whatever you do, once that loan's paid off, you don't own anything. So let's talk about this concept. What if, instead of paying it all there, we helped you invest in real estate? We call it the 1% rule. So let me give you an example. There's a property, say for $100,000. If it's the 1% rule, that means it'll rent for $1,000 a month. $100,000 property, rent for $1,000 a month. Well, you don't have probably $100,000 sitting in an account. If you did, you would have already paid for that student loan, right? However, you could look at it as an investor. When you go to buy a property at $100,000, you have to have a minimum down payment. There are some other ways to structure it, but typical is 20%, which means you would need to have $20,000. You might be thinking, well, James, I don't have the 60. How do I have the 20? Let me help you with that. Let's run the math off of this. You have $20,000 that you could do something with. You could take that $60,000 student loan and take it down to 40. Very exciting, right? But you have nothing to show for it now. What if we took that same $20,000, bought a property? We're now making $1,000 a month. Well, at this point, I want to help you understand. That's the gross. And some of you are thinking, wait a second, there's expenses. I don't get $1,000. Correct, you don't. So let's focus on this. Let's say you get a loan. Now remember, it's a loan on the $80,000, okay? With the lower interest rates, investor rates, you're at 4% or less on the $80,000. Probably, here's a rule of thumb as you're looking at buying or investing. For every $100,000 that you borrow, it's roughly $600 a month, okay? But we're not even borrowing that much. So let's factor in that it's $450 PITI, that's principal, interest, tax, and insurance, $450 that you're paying in order to own this asset. Well, let's go back here. So that's your monthly payment that you have to make, right? You also have a property management fee because likely if you live in the DMV, the Washington, D.C. metro market, we're not finding a lot of properties at $100,000. That's a garage space. So we're over here, we're saying, well, if it's out of market, I'm also going to have to pay what we call a property management fee. Somebody else that's making sure that nothing goes wrong with the property. So now we're at $550, okay? There could be some maintenance, there could be some different things, but these are your hard costs involved. because I've already included your taxes. So if in this scenario, you took that $20,000, didn't put it towards student loan, you put it towards accruing an asset, becoming a real estate investor. When we factor in the cost, you're now at $450. You owe $300 a month. You're to the positive $150, and you're to the positive of owning a real estate asset. Here's what's fun. You could even say, you know, at $150, I want to actually put $450 towards my loan to pay it off faster. Well, here's what's exciting. You have the opportunity to own a real estate investment, maybe even before you buy your own first property, and have the proceeds that you've borrowed at a below interest rate. You know, some of you, when I said 4%, you're like, well, dang, my student loan 6%. Probably. You're now leveraging an asset that you own to pay for your student loan. Here's the challenge. I don't see anyone talking about this. I don't see anyone talking about how do you get out of debt, but get out of debt as an investor. So when we're talking about the cash flow quadrant and we move you from being employed, working 2 or 3 jobs to try to pay it down, let's work smarter, not harder. Smarter is, let's build up the reserves so you have that down payment. Heck, let's go in with somebody else and borrow the down payment, and now you have cash flow coming in. And this cash flow can pay for your debt. That's the concept that we get inspired to share with even our agents, our clients, everyone else. How do you become a real estate investor, and how do you do it in such a way that it helps cover your debt? If you're interested in learn more about real estate investing and how do you do it for your student loan debt, or maybe your kids or your grandkids, reach out to the Nellis Group today as we inspire you and help you become a real estate investor.